People today. People today. They could spend half their lives over 50. That's a lot of living. So it helps to have a wise friend and fierce defender in your corner. A friend like AARP. So your health lives longer.
This is just slow-mo karate?
Just slow-mo karate.
Your money lives longer.
I just bought that.
I just sold that.
And your happiness lives longer. That's why the younger you are, the more you need AARP. Join today.
Welcome to AARP Illinois' virtual event. It's so wonderful to have you with us. AARP is on a mission to connect with individuals across various communities, especially those aged 50 and above. We're here to listen, understand, and address the unique needs of you and your community as we age. Our goal is to enrich your experience by expanding our local activities, providing opportunities for you to discover and engage with all that life has to offer right here in your own community and virtually. As we journey through today's event, we invite you to consider joining our dedicated team of AARP volunteers. It's a chance to make a meaningful impact and help us better serve those 50 plus across the nation. Connect with us and be a part of this vibrant movement toward positive change. Welcome, and let's make this event both fun and transformative.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to AARP Illinois' special virtual event. I'm Courtney Hedderman, Senior Associate State Director for AARP Illinois, and I am your Fraud-Fighting Fraudlette. I am thrilled to be bringing the latest on frauds and scams and ultimately arming you with the information you need for prevention and reporting if you're ever a victim. Today, we're diving into a very critical topic that affects millions of older adults and their families, and that's protecting yourself from fraud and financial exploitation. So with scams becoming more and more sophisticated and really targeting almost any age, frankly, but certainly our aging population, it's more important than ever to understand the risks and how to safeguard against them. So I'm honored to be joined today by Steve Anderson. As you may know, because he's been on some other stuff with us, but you know, and if you don't, Steve is a very respected elder law attorney. He's a former state representative, and he's currently a partner at Netgritz Amdor Anderson Group. He has tremendous experience, truly an expert. He specializes in helping older adults and their families navigate legal protections and, of course, financial safety. So, Steve, welcome to the call. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's always a great time to be on these episodes. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Okay, so everybody, before we get started with our discussion, I'd like to remind everybody, Facebook, YouTube, where however you're tuning in, please, if you have any questions or you'd like to share any comments, feel free to do them in that social media feeds. We will absolutely do our best to address as many of your questions as possible during our conversation. So put your questions or comments in the feeds. Okay, so let's just kick us off though. So let's start with some questions. Okay, so Steve, let's just start with the basics essentially. I think that some people might not fully understand what financial exploitation really is. It's kind of a technical term sometimes. So how do you define financial exploitation when it comes especially to older adults?
Sure. And before I even answer that, one preface, which is that I am a lawyer licensed in the state of Illinois, but this is not legal advice. I cannot give you legal advice like this. And most importantly, our show goes beyond the borders of the state of Illinois. So what I try to do is I try to give you a primer, if you will, of what the law generally is on this topic. It's not specific to Illinois or any other state, to be perfectly honest. So when you hear what I have to say, if you have questions, we can always try to follow up. But most importantly, if you have real issues, you need to talk to an attorney or a financial provider in your own state, in your own jurisdiction.
Yep. Good. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Okay. So financial exploitation, what do you think?
Yeah. So I kind of define it in three different buckets, if you will. So the first is just outright theft, right? That's exploitation. Maybe that means that you have somebody come into your house to clean your house for you, and they happen to know that you have your wallet sitting on your bedside or something, and they literally just take money out of it. That's financial exploitation. That's the very direct thing. But another category, which is much more dangerous in my mind, is fraud. Fraud itself. And what is fraud? Fraud means making misrepresentations, lies generally, to you, and then hoping and expecting you're going to rely on that. So that's when I say, oh, I can get you this great investment, and I guarantee you're going to make 100% back on your money every month, for the rest of your life. Give me your money and I'll do that for you. That's fraud, unless, of course, they can deliver on that, which is unlikely, but that's fraud. And then the third bucket is the way I would characterize this is it's legal, but it's misapprehension. It's manipulation of you. And what I would call that is like the things you get in the mail. I get them where it'll say, you have a mortgage. This is an important mortgage notice about your mortgage. And it'll even tell you, where your mortgage is, like from, Wells Fargo or you name it, somebody. And it'll be like, oh my gosh, they have my information. This must be real. But then when you open it, if you read carefully, it's just a sales promotion. They want you to refinance your mortgage with them, but they make it look like it's a form, like a government form. That's a category of financial exploitation because they're not telling you the whole truth and they're using your own information, which, by the way, they can get legally, from like the recorder's office or something. They can find that information out, but they're manipulating you with it to try to trick you into something that is otherwise legal. I think that that's exploitation 100% as well.
Yeah, no, you just gave some really great examples. Are there any other more common scams or fraud schemes that you've noticed or that you see the most as well?
There's a ton right now on your smartphones, mostly your texts. And so what'll happen is, and again, I get these, I'm a senior myself, I get these just as much as anyone else. Examples where it'll say, you've been selected to earn money. All you have to do is work an hour or two a week and you'll make, thousands of dollars. I mean, it really says that. Those are complete scams. And rule of thumb, if it sounds too good to be true, it is. Okay. So that sounded great, but it's too good to be true. So it is. There's that. But then there's the flip side where there's a text that comes in and says, this is Commonwealth Edison, or this is AT&T, and we're about to shut off your service because you owe money, which of course you probably don't, and it's a complete surprise. Well, it's a surprise because you don't owe any money. This is fraud, but they want you to dial a number or they want you to click on a website that might even look like it's official, but it's not. And the whole goal there is to get you to give personal information so that then they can get into your bank accounts. So those are very common. And like I said, the best thing you can do, if you take away one thing from today's conversation, is if it sounds too good to be true, don't believe it because it's not true. Don't act on these things. Good or if it sounds bad and you don't owe any money, ignore it, delete it, block it.
Yep, absolutely. I know I keep getting on my phone the text messages saying I owe tolls.
Sure.
And so I feel like that's a really common one too right now. And I mean, I have an iPass, like again, as you said, we're in Illinois, right? And so I have an iPass and I can use it even in Indiana and whatnot for tolls. But I mean, that's just a prevalent one. And I have to admit, I did click on that at first because I was like, wait a minute, did something happen where it wasn't automatically being taken out? Now, luckily I didn't fill anything out. And so I was safe in the end, but like it is amazing how sometimes, again, you're very well prepared and you think that, hey, wait, I'm never going to fall for something. And then you do. I clicked on that and I shouldn't have clicked on it, even though it didn't take me in a bad spot. But
that one in particular, it's a really great example, Courtney, because that one, unlike the examples I gave, where I know I pay my heating bill, right? It's not that hard to verify. A toll transaction, you could easily believe you missed something, like your transponder didn't go off, but they got your license plate, right?
Right.
So
Right.
that's believable, but
Yeah.
they're never going to contact you that way. They won't. The
Right.
only time you get texts are either you initiated it, like you started the text, but if they come out of the blue, don't believe them. And
Yep.
and you know what? Even if it is true, don't worry. If you don't pay it and you owe it, they'll find you a different way.
That's
Find you
true.
a legitimate way. So
That's definitely true. Very good advice. Very good advice.
yeah.
Love it. Love it. Well, okay. So, I mean, obviously, I just even gave an example. I even clicked on it. So, I think that no matter what someone's age is, but I do think that obviously older adults are more prone to be vulnerable for these types of scams. So why do you think that's the case? Like, why do you think that they target specific populations, these criminals?
Right. Well, I mean, speaking as a senior, I can tell you there's at least two reasons I automatically think of. One is that technology changes so fast. And for someone my age or older, it's easy to this stuff looks so real. Right?
It does.
That I'm thinking, oh, well, they have enough information about me. This must be legitimate, right? So that sort of thing. So one cause that I think targets people my age and older is that we're just not quite as adept, and I don't mean to insult anybody. There's probably lots of seniors who are really, really good at it, but I'm not. And so it's very easy to get tricked just because the technology is moving so fast.
Mm-hmm.
The other is that, let's be honest, as we age, I mean, I can own it right away. I'm not as quick as I used to be. And so they take advantage of that fact. And, you get a little nervous as you get older that, maybe you're on a fixed income and you don't want to make mistakes. And so there's a bit of fear there that I think younger people are less afraid to screw up, to be perfectly honest.
You're right.
Can recover from a lot of things, but at my age or older, you don't want to make a lot of mistakes. So those things encourage you to try to always be on the straight and narrow. And then when you get one of these manipulative things that scares you, you worry. So I think those are big reasons why.
I completely agree. Yes, 100%. Okay. So obviously in your introduction, you're an elder law attorney. So you've had a lot of experience, I think, in this. So, you've probably seen cases, or you've actually handled cases involving elder financial abuse. And so maybe can you share any example? Of course, it'd be anonymous, like you would not be sharing, details of someone's actual name and things like that. So recognize that. But is there some sort of, again, example where you've handled something like that?
Yeah, I've been practicing in the elder law field for 32 years. So I've seen quite a bit. And as I reflect on that question, one of the example I want to give you, and of course I'm not giving away any names or any information, give anyone any ideas. But what happens, and it's unfortunately altogether too common, is that you have a caregiver in your house. And the caregiver is there. Maybe the sons and daughters hired the caregiver. Everything seemed okay. And the person is actually pretty wonderful, or seems pretty wonderful. But what happens over time is they get very close to the person that they're caring for. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's great. But other times, what it ends up meaning is that they get access to your checking account, they get access to your credit cards, they ask you to sign your checks so that they can pay some bills for you, things like that. And I have unfortunately seen whole, an elderly person's whole bank account get drained as a result of things like that. And that was really the failure of two things. One, the ethics of the person who's the thief, that person who's first and foremost the evildoer here. But the second is a lack of communication with the family. If the family had been more involved in the day-to-day finances of that senior, this could have cut off faster, but they weren't. And again, this is why I'm not sharing any names or any information, but it does happen. So it kind of indicates a strong strategy for not having that happen to you is make sure you have trusted people who are aware of your circumstances financially and otherwise. Have people who are there for you that you know you can trust. And that doesn't have to just be family, because maybe you're in a place where you don't have a lot of family. That happens, right?
Right.
That's okay. You can have a trusted friend. You can have a trusted, even a banker or somebody like that. Now they typically charge money for protecting you, but if that's all you got, it might be a good investment. But have people. In Illinois, we have a thing called Senior Services Associates, not for profit, and they're partially funded by the state of Illinois, where you can go and talk with them too. So there are resources, and that's my point is don't go it alone on this. Don't do that, because you just don't know what you don't know.
Right. Oh no, I love that. I actually had kind of like an acquaintance that there was theft for their mother, and from their mother from a caregiver, and ultimately the caregiver said, you weren't as involved as I was, and I deserved this money. And so I just thought it was so interesting that because the caregiver again was hired and was doing a lot and got very close and was very clearly very, very involved,
Right.
that they had this expectation that they deserve more.
Right.
And that even went to say that no, like she approved it, and of course she didn't approve it. She had no idea what was going on, but really felt that, hey, I'm here all the time. I'm doing all these things, and you're not here as much, and you're not as on the pulse as I am, and I deserve this. And that was a huge attitude, again, empowerment type of thing, which I would assume that that's maybe a very standard thing that sometimes happens, right?
It is. It's just a similar story to the one that I shared,
Right.
the idea. But in your story, they're manipulating two people,
Right.
feeding off the guilt of the daughter or the son who isn't there as much as she is. Well, of course they're not. Maybe they have real jobs, they have to work for a living and support.
Right.
We always talk about the sandwich generation, those people who are in their middling years where they have a mom or a dad that they have to take care of, but they have kids to take care of too. But, my test for a question like that is, if you deserved it so much and if it was okay, why didn't you come to me and talk about that?
Right.
We could have, if that were true, we could have cut you a bigger check or whatever, but you decided to do it on your own. That's when it became a problem.
Right. Love that. Yeah, for sure. Interesting. Well, I would think though that we have, just in the protection side, right? There has to be things that we can do to protect ourselves and obviously seniors from financial exploitation, like powers of attorney or trust and things like that. So on that, I'm just keeping with the legal side, I guess, what legal tools or documents can people take advantage of to make sure that maybe they're not financially exploited?
Yeah, so you mentioned a great one, which is powers of attorney. Trusts are maybe a little complicated for this show, but that is certainly something we can get into. It's kind of like a power of attorney on superpower or something. Because in that case, you turn over most of your control of everything to a third party, which can be okay. But a power of attorney is a little simpler. It's certainly simpler to execute. They exist in all 50 states. They might be called something different than a power of attorney, but the idea is you name a person to take care of your assets, your affairs when you can't. So it doesn't mean you give up total control, but it does mean that you have somebody who can step in and be there when you need them to be. Now, I will say this, though. There is no document in the world that can substitute for a person who is with you and familiar with your circumstances and who can watch your bank account and things like that. No document will protect you the way a trusted family member or a trusted friend could. In combination, that's the best if you have both. Because that way they can step in, even if it's not fraud, even if it's just you become ill and you need somebody to pay your bills to keep your household going when you're sick. So you can have that. And so the power of attorney or the trust, very, very important. But no more than the person who is being named in it.
Gotcha. Now, and I know you've talked about this in other shows, actually, within AARP Illinois. If somebody was interested in those documents, whether power of attorney, a trust, etc., they need to seek out an attorney, correct? Just wanted to throw that back out there.
If I'm being absolutely technical about it, you don't have to see an attorney for either if you don't want to.
Okay.
I wouldn't recommend that. There are online forms for powers of attorney for healthcare and property in Illinois. You can download the form. You can, as long as you follow the requirements for witnesses and things like that, in theory, you could do it yourself. But there's a lot of nuance in there that isn't covered by a form that an attorney could help you with. And I'd really advise against it with a trust because, again, you can probably Google free online living trust or something like that, and you'll find one. But they won't be good. They won't be good. You need somebody with the background and the education. And if you really want to do it right, you have an attorney, but you also have a financial planner who work together, maybe even your insurance agent, all working together in your best interest to make sure that everybody's doing it the best that they can for you.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. Great advice. I think that, if you have that trusted, loved one, family member or friend or something like that, and, they have your best interest at heart, right? How do you think they kind of strike the balance between protecting the person's finances, right? But also kind of respecting their independence, especially maybe as their independence is getting less, right? Yeah. How do people do that, you think?
That's so valuable to lift up that thought because, it's usually our decline as we head into our twilight years is usually gradual, right? So I feel pretty good about my own capacity. My daughter or son might disagree with me, though, a little bit. But it is good to talk about that early on. And that's how I think you strike the balance, is that when you're in your full capacity, that's the time to start talking about this, not when you're already forgetting, half the things that you used to remember, or you're unsure, you get nervous. Do it first. Do it today. And I know that conversation can be hard for people. It's kind of like talking about your last will and testament. People don't like to do that.
Right.
But I want to urge you to do it in a very comforting environment. Have your son, your daughter, your family, whoever it is, come over to the house, have dinner together, maybe a glass of wine if that's something you like to do, and have a conversation about the past and the future. Talk about the importance of your family. Talk about things you might get scared of as you go forward. And that's the way. And then the son, the daughter, the caregiver needs to listen, really listen with an open heart and ask about that. Say, mom or dad, I don't want to interfere, but I want to be sure I'm helping too. How does that work for you? How do you think that should work? In other words, don't lay it on them and say, this is what we're going to do. Say, mom or dad, what makes sense for you? And then have that kind of nice conversation back and forth. And then if you do an enjoyable, hopefully that'd be an enjoyable conversation, not a bad one. Right. Then maybe you can even go to the attorney afterwards and say, we had this great conversation. How can we write this up? And then an attorney can help you write that up. That might even become part of the power of attorney. Some of those details that I say, the nuance that isn't in a form. But those are best thing you can possibly do is communicate early on, I would say.
I love that. I love it too that, sometimes, and we haven't really talked about this part, but like sometimes the families are maybe fractured or, when something's not shared more like early or it's kind of shared after and only one person knew or one person was kind of in charge and not everybody was on the same page. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. That just adds to a lot of conflict then within families. So maybe bringing people together truly could be a way to alleviate that. I'm not sure why people are afraid to do that though. They should. And this is their, this is their money, this is their assets, this is their health, like anything that needs to kind of be discussed. You would think that maybe people would start to feel more comfortable in sharing that. Instead, they kind of don't sometimes, right? So
they don't. You're absolutely right. You bring up an excellent point, Courtney, is that families do get fractured. Hard feelings do exist. That is the nature of life, right? So that does happen. So yes, this idea might work, but maybe it won't. Maybe there's too much bad blood where you can't get everybody together. Well, if that's the case, then pick your best option. In other words, if there is one child that you really trust and there's one that you don't, well, go with the one that you trust. Have the conversation with that one, and then document things. Then you could even do a videotape of it if you wanted to. Where you tape the conversation.
yeah.
Or you could go again to an attorney and explain the circumstances. Say, this is the person I really, really trust, and unfortunately, I love my other child, but I can't trust them for whatever reason, good, bad, or indifferent.
Right.
That's life. So again, I keep going back to the same thing. I'm going to go back to it every single time. Communication.
Yeah.
And there are tough circumstances like that. Let's be real about that. And you do the best you can, even in those circumstances.
Yeah, agree. Totally agree. Great advice. Great advice. Well, maybe let's switch a little bit to more like banks and financial institutions than their role. So obviously, most people have a bank account or they're utilizing multiple financial institutions. Maybe they have investments. There's lots of places people kind of frequent in that respect as it relates to their money. So what role do those institutions play? Like, again, banks, financial institutions, what is their role in, especially not only detecting maybe fraud, but then maybe even preventing it too?
Right. So for example, credit card companies, let's use that. They have become very good, very adept at detecting fraud in the use of your credit card.
Yes.
Maybe someone got your credit card. Maybe your password information was stolen. Happens to millions of people every year. It just, there are people who just try to dig up people's passwords, and they are very good at it. But they're not perfect. Nobody can be perfect. If it were perfect, the criminals wouldn't be in business. And so when you suspect something, again, if something doesn't seem right, reach out. Right? Call your credit card company, call your bank, and ask them, hey, I feel like I saw something on my statement that didn't seem right. Fortunately, in most states, there are protections, even if the money gets stolen out of your credit card or out of your bank account. There are time frames. Now, they're measured in days or weeks, not in months or years, where if you can notify the credit card company, hey, this is not me, they will reverse that charge. They will be more on the hook than you will be. So there are provisions for that sort of thing. And I would encourage you, again, best thing you can do is monitor your accounts. Look for those oddities. And I will also tell you, there's a great technological advantage these days that I use, which is on my smartphone. It's a banking app that I use, and there are probably hundreds of them, but they're all connected to real banks, Chase Bank, and by the way, I'm not endorsing any bank or any financial institution, but just names you would recognize, right?
Sure.
They're connected with those. And basically you can budget, which is great, regardless of fraud, allows you to online live budget and see where you are in a month. And it'll pick up, oh, you spent in an uncategorized, why did you buy camping gear?
Right.
Like that, which you don't, something that doesn't fit into your budgeted categories. But when it'll pop up, it'll send me a little notice saying, you just spent money on this. Is that right? And if it's not right, that's my chance to, again, pick up the phone and call my bank and say, this seems right, or go in. I'm going to give you, I know I'm droning on and on, but
no, you're great.
Also, don't be afraid to go into your bank. Develop a relationship with some of the bankers. Then they can watch out for you even better, because maybe you develop a friendship and they want to watch out for you. Relationships are so huge in every aspect of our life.
Oh, I completely agree. 100%. I mean, people know who their doctor is. They know who their pharmacist. They should know their banker.
That's right.
I completely agree with that. That's great advice. Well, so you started to go down this path, so I'm bringing us there. So if someone suspects they've been financially exploited, something has happened, like who should they contact, and kind of what any steps that you would share about, or kind of reporting, for lack of better words.
Yeah. So best case scenario, if you will, is if you have a trusted caregiver, trusted family member, talk to them immediately. That's number one. That's not the only thing to do. Number two, call your bank, call your credit card, call whatever institution it is that you have a concern about. If you have that, do that. Number three, call your attorney if you have one. Not everybody does, but if you have one, call that person. And then a fourth, and I'd like you to do all these things, but if you don't have, do the ones that you can. But the fourth is call your state government. In other words, call your attorney general's office, call your state's attorney's office. They might have different names in different states. That's what we call them in Illinois. But I think you know what I'm talking about. Call them. They have fraud divisions. They have people, and they're usually attorneys who are there, and they work for you, but they work for the public. They work for all of us. It's your tax dollars at work. Call them, and they can help too. And I'll even throw a fifth on there. You consider talking to AARP, because AARP, now they can't give you legal advice and financial, but they can point you to people maybe who can.
Yes, actually, we do have a reporting mechanism through our Fraud Watch network. So someone could actually be reporting to us, and we can advice and referral out to get assistance. And of course, I will add, now I guess I'm adding a sixth one, Steve. You can always call your local law enforcement. They are definitely also on the front lines as well, and happy to assist anybody, or put somebody in the right direction. But obviously, filing a police report is sometimes part of the process. So local law enforcement would be the other one as well. So lots of people. The point of this question, really, and now the answer, is that there's so many people who are wanting to help. If anybody has experienced anything or think they have experienced something, please report to all the, obviously, the things that we just talked about, to those entities, to those folks. There's so much help out there. So. Yeah.
And one, I'm not sure how much time we have left, but one,
no, you're fine.
On that is, don't be afraid to do this because you're embarrassed. Okay. We all make mistakes. This is not something, none of the people I just described is going to lash out at you and say, oh, you did this. How could you do that, mom or dad? Well, maybe kids sometimes can do that, but besides them, and hopefully they won't either if you have that good relationship. But this is not a shame-based thing. This is not something to be embarrassed about. Somebody manipulated you, not the other way around. Somebody tricked you. So you shouldn't feel any embarrassment or any concern over talking to people about that. They tricked you. They're the ones who are at fault. They're the ones who should be ashamed of themselves, not you, not ever.
Yes, 100%. Best message for sure. Please report. And folks, if you think you've been a victim, you have been a victim, please report. You will not only help yourself, but you will help somebody else. So thank you for that. Okay, so before we close, I guess any last piece of advice you'd give maybe every family to help prevent elder financial abuse before it starts? Any last piece of advice?
So I'm going to say it again. I told you I'd say it a bunch of times.
I love it. Good.
Is communication with people that you trust. I have been saying that for 32 years of practice. If you have the right people in your life who you can rely on, you're going to be okay.
Oh, love it. That's perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Steve, for sharing your expertise and helping us better understand how to protect ourselves and also our other older loved ones. This is such an important conversation, and I hope it empowers everybody, all of our listeners, to take action and ultimately stay vigilant too. So thank you all. Thank you. I can't believe we're at the end of our call. That went so fast. Thank you for joining us for this enlightening conversation. Remember, the power to create positive change lies within each of us. Please join us next month for another engaging conversation regarding fraud. So that last that last Monday of the month at 10 a.m. So come back to us. Thank you to our special guest, Steve Anderson. It's been a pleasure as always. I appreciate your expertise and, of course, everything you shared with everybody. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we look forward to continuing our mission of supporting older adults, caregivers, the entire aging community in Illinois, and of course, across the country. For more information regarding fraud, you can call 877-908-3360. Again, that's 877-908-3360, or by visiting our website, aarp.org/Fraud Watch Network. So again, that's aarp.org/Fraud Watch Network. If you'd like more information on AARP's upcoming virtual events here in Illinois, please visit us at aarp.org/IL. That's aarp.org/IL. All right, everybody, have the most wonderful day. Have a great week. This concludes